Hi there, I'm Michael Hill with Canine Chronicle TV, and today for our Influencers series, I am here today with Lenny Brown. How are you, Lenny?
Very good. How are you?
I am great. So, you've had a good year. Some exciting things have been happening for you in the world of dogs. But let's start with the very beginning and how you first got into the sport in general.
I think I was probably 8 or 9, and my dad got me a German Shepherd, and we went to a local breeder. It was Rick and Shirley Morgan, Von Christian German Shepherds in Steubenville, Ohio. I lived in West Virginia, but the top of West Virginia, kind of between Ohio and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And they showed dogs, and they got us a puppy. My dad got us a puppy, a female, and then they kind of talked us into, going to dog shows and everything like that. And that's kind of how it started. So
Just
and
kind of
then,
stumbled into it.
yes, and I was hooked from day one. I mean, because German Shepherds, were so popular back then. Everywhere there was
Sure.
hundreds of German Shepherds,
Right.
and I was starstruck. I mean, basically, and the Shepherd handlers were my heroes. They were my heroes in life. So and in dog shows and everything else, I never wanted to do anything else besides be a handler.
Who were some of the first handlers that made contact with you when you had that first dog and you're first going to shows there in the area?
Terry Hauer. Terry Hauer was a famous German Shepherd handler. He lived in Akron, Ohio. So that would have been 2 hours from where I grew up. And the breeders where we got the dogs used Terry. And this would have been in the time, of course, I met Jim. I mean, I met everybody. I was a pretty outgoing kid, and I would ask
You really?
yeah, I would ask 100 million questions. So at that time, Jim was probably doing Manhattan, at the time, and Terry and Linda, Linda Bankhead, they were married at the time. They ran the specialty shows, and I didn't have any interest in any all breed shows whatsoever, because those specialties were just and the location that I lived in, that northern Ohio, western Pennsylvania area. I mean, that was like one of the meccas of German Shepherds,
Right.
So the who's who,
So many shows.
lived in that area. I mean, it was just like going to heaven of a dog show if you were there,
So you're young and you're like, still kind of getting started. What was the
I don't
next
even
step after
think
your own dog?
I was I was like, probably at that time 8. You would put me in the 10 to 12 range. You know what I mean? And I was pretty sharp kid. So I would catch on really, really, really quick. Of what was going on and when and where. So again, I didn't like. I played sports in school. My mom was a principal, so education was extremely big in our family. So I had to go to school, and I played some sports activities, but dog shows was everything that I wanted to do. Guys my age like Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, mine were those Shepherd handlers. Those guys, Scotty, Jim, George Bursler, Terry, of course, they were my heroes, heroes in life.
Your icons.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then you're, transitioning from a younger kid getting started in the sport. When did you kind of start getting like a serious holding, like working for somebody or kind of really developing that mentorship?
I would say this is what I would do. I would go to these specialty shows, literally, and again, was just in awe about the whole picture. And then at that time, the all breeds and the two, they fascinated me, because I would look at the other dogs, but I wasn't really hooked yet. I never understood about campaigning the dog, because when I would stay for a group, and let's just say way past Manhattan, Jimmy was probably showing Mystique, at that time. He always won. So in my, at least for the groups, you know what I mean? We
Right.
see the show, as everybody knows, but why would you even show something else? Because the shepherd always won. That's how I put it. How the Albury thing happened for me is I knew Sam Lawrence from German Shepherds, and he kind of liked me and thought I had natural talent and everything like that. And he was the owner of Lonesome Dove. And we were at Western Reserve all breed shows in Cleveland, and Michael Kemp flew up there to show Lonesome Dove. Jim wasn't at that show, and I saw Sam, and I, always would run up and ask him questions. And he says, "Come and watch my wire fox terrier." Now, Sam was so predominant German Shepherd judge, and he kind of reminded me of my grandfather. He kind of had that era about him, how he carried himself, as a human being. And so he said, "Come and," I didn't know who Michael Kemp was, and I sure in hell didn't know who Lacey was, So then I went over and I watched it, and I started figuring things out,
So a different side of things.
Yeah, and at that time, coming from the area I went, like Tom Glassford, I mean, he ran Ohio. Joseph Rignetti, Bud Dickey, they were very predominant, did very well. At the time, like Sandra DeAndrea just stopped working for Tom. She was kicking ass with her Malamutes. Tommy O with the Siberian couldn't beat Tommy O. I mean, so then I started catching on that this is really what I want to do. The first person that I met, I would say in our generation, would be Angela Lloyd, because Angela Lloyd, we probably met when we were 12 because her dad showed German Shepherd dogs.
Yeah.
So say in dogs, she was probably my first friend, of an age group, what I
Sure.
She already was working for Bobby Fowler. I mean, she had a lot more going on than I ever did,
Right.
So at that time, I went, was showing shepherds and trying to get in the ring. I mean, you had to beg to go into the ring. I would pray by the ring that somebody would let me take the 6 to 9 puppy into winners. I mean, I would literally beg, sit by the entrance.
Oh my God. You're like, my hands are open. Just hand me one.
I was obnoxious. So that's how it kind of happened. And then, that was going good. And I went and worked I knew about the Albrights. Glassford gave me a lot of good advice, and he just said, you need to be the best at everything. And at that time he was quitting and he got the rep job. So he was, gave me a lot of good advice, and he knew the direction. I never wanted to do the carriers. Of course you meet friends along the way. I met, of course, Jamie Clute and I are friends, dear friends. The Wilkerson brothers and I are very good friends. Of course, Clayton came out and was working for Rick. Those are probably Paul Catterson. I mean, those are probably my best buddies of doing this. And I went and worked for Bob Double and Jim Martin, because they lived in the Pittsburgh area. And I got some experience of going that way,
Got it.
And that was a pretty good experience for me. And, I love those boys, and they kind of taught me they're both, deceased at this time, but they taught me so much of the whole game, of
the bigger picture.
Right. But it was in a 6-hour radius. I mean, I never traveled past that area, and you probably, they had other jobs besides showing. So that, it at least got me the basics. And at that time, then it's going to come to the big picture of Jim,
Sure.
Jim Moses. I knew Jim throughout the years, of course, through Shepherds. I mean, if you're in Shepherds, you're going to look up to Jim. There's no question about it. But at that time, I was going to college. Like I said, I had to go to the university for my mom. I mean, there was no
question.
You weren't getting out of that one. I mean, that just wasn't happening. And also, I had very good business people in my life. There were smart business people, which definitely helped me in this business, because I was also, besides the dogs, of course, I was also in love with the business. I mean, if you're going to do this and have nice things, I came from nice things. If
Yeah.
you're going to do this, I mean, I just jumped in head, line, and sinker. So when I talked to Jim, and we kind of, he was, I mean, of course, Jim always kicked gas, but he was really started doing the breeding, and I think he felt that I was going to be a big asset to him because of the love for the shepherds, and he was married to Sherry, of course, at the time, who you're, dear friends with. And I mean, I finished school and I think I was down there the next week. And let me tell you, that was probably the best.
Wasted no time.
But that was the biggest eye opener that, happened to me. I mean, I have so many stories. I should write a book. I don't even need to be doing this. Like, I can be writing a book.
This is your brainstorming.
Working for Jim was like going to Harvard. It was. When you talk about dog show, I had great dog show people. I think a lot of things always in life fell my way. I do. I believe that, and I came from a strong Greek family, and we believed in God, and we tried to do the right thing, and we tried to help people. And I feel that that's the way I was brought up. And I feel that that's why I had good things in life, because I try to help as many people as I can. And I think favors were reversed for me, because I mean, it just fell my way, and working for Jim, it was the best thing I ever did. I gave up a lot of things, a lot of things, but I mean, he just puts you in a whole different world, I mean, he just did. I mean, in my opinion here, I mean, I'm going to go 100 miles an hour. I mean, go for it. No one did it. I got every experience that you would want to in these dogs working for Jim, from the big kennels to promoting big dime dogs to being around breeding programs. I mean, it was like going to Harvard, and you learn, and you better be able to take criticism, but you wouldn't, and my dad was pretty strict with me. So when Jim would lose, Jim was a pretty cool guy, but when he would lose it, which was once in a blue moon, I mean, it wasn't all the time. I was probably one of the ones that was able to handle it the most, because I wanted the best, and I knew he wanted to make things better. I mean, when I was down there, he just got Dallas, and he was sight for sore eyes. We were top dog, all breeds. We were just getting things started, and then the next year, we were going to go for top dog, all breeds. And you're not around a program, a handling program, when somebody says to you, we're going to go for top dog, all breeds. My mouth dropped. I've never seen anything like that. You know what I mean? It was, but I mean, Jim
buckle up
in a different level. I mean, he just did. And one of the best things that, besides with Jim, is he was a perfectionist. I mean, I remember going out and we won all 4 best in shows. And that's when kind of everything, these clusters. I mean, when I started with Jim, they didn't have any cell phones. There was no Facebook. I remember we were grooming dogs in the kennel, and things were working out. And I think everyone was happy with one another. And the kennel was just booming. I mean, there was always, 70 some dogs, 100 dogs. I mean, it was just, and Jim and Sherry were breeding so many good dogs. I mean, everywhere you look, there was just good dogs. And I think that's important in today's society, with some of the younger people that are trying to get something going. The best thing that happened to me was the opportunity, and that's probably the best word that I would want to use for anybody young, is you got to take those opportunities. And he gave me probably the biggest opportunity. It was just how well someone's going to take it. And I stuck every information that I possibly could. I did.
It was like an intensive.
Because Sherry was a better explainer. Jim, you had to watch him. You know what I mean? And he would shout out things and you would learn things. And Jim's a pretty shrewd guy, but Sherry was a better teacher, when it came to that kind of level when we were doing the grooming and all that stuff. I mean, it was great. It was in all aspects. It was just phenomenal. And I would say for anybody younger, they need to work on opportunities of handlers that have the knowledge, because everybody wants to go straight to prime time and your Westminster winners and all that. Well, if you don't know, I went back and watched some of your videos and people talked about animal husbandry. How are you going to get prime time if you never knew how to take care of those prime time dogs?
Yeah.
And that's something, everybody talks about how trimming and trimming and trimming. I hear about trimming all the time. Well, there's more to it than just trimming. Jim was by far the best about getting into a dog's head. There was no one, and there's a lot of great people, but he was phenomenal about getting into animals' heads. We would win all 4 best shows, and it wasn't good enough. I mean, it wasn't. So hang on, I just got somebody calling. I'm going to try to get rid of him. So that's what I learned about him. He would say to me, we'd go best in show, everybody would be jumping and screaming and hollering and everything else. And then he would, we would wait till everybody would leave. And then we would go back to the show and work it to make sure that it was better. And we won all of it, So those are the things that, probably I look back to when you said we were going to do this. The memories started coming back.
Yeah.
Started laughing and reminiscing to myself about those days. They were the best of my life. When he said he was stopping, I think I about died. And at that time, he had me doing so much for him. With the entries and the billing, and I mean, it really wasn't a big shocker of anything that I had to do. But I was there well over 13 years. I mean, I actually thought he was gonna just die in the ring. I never thought we were gonna quit. I didn't know. I mean,
you can't stop.
That's how we did it, So
wow.
And the experience, the opportunity, and I loved every minute of it. And but again, there's heartaches that you do. I mean, I stayed in Atlanta. I don't have any family in Atlanta. Everybody of somewhat of a friend, is through the kennel that did some work for me through the kennel, So, but it's hard work, and you got to keep things going. But I love what I do. I mean, if I was a millionaire, I would run German Shepherds because that's just what I like to do.
Yeah.
And
and on top of that, you've had a pretty good year with something happening at the Garden and at the special national specialty, and I think that's also too like a testament to recreating those same skill sets that you were learning when you were watching it happen with Dallas.
Oh my God, I wouldn't know how to do it any other way. I mean, it was just when, I love showing the other breeds. One of my biggest wins that I felt inside is when I showed the Afghan for Lourdes Scafino and won under Michael Canalizzo. I mean, that was fantastic. Winning the breed under somebody like Michael. The national specialties, I think I'm on my 12th one between America and Canada, because the Canadian national is just as big. It's like the sister to the American national. But yeah, of course, all that is Jim, and how he taught us how to do things, and promoting the breed and trying to do what's right, and being fair to the clients and everything like that, helping them with their programs. A lot of their idea, a lot of their big winners of my clients were my ideas. You know what I mean? Things that I learned from Jim, and I used to study a lot more back then than I have to do now, is studying breeding, pedigrees and matching everything up and who's right and wrong. And, not to say that I'm breeder of the year, because that is not it, but, there's heartache in breeding. And sometimes,
of course,
you do breedings and of course they're just ideas, and then they go wrong, and something else. One of my dearest friends in this business is Donna Calabrese, is Olivia's mother. I mean, my God, I mean, she gave me, another word, opportunity. She probably gave me some of the best dogs before going into gyms. I mean, when I went to gyms, I think I still had to prove myself to him. I mean, she did so much for me, you know, giving me so many good dogs. And we have a lot of good wins together, you know, and a lot of heartache together too, you know. But
sure. Well, you can't have the good without the bad. There's no way around it, right?
I think a lot, this is what I'd say in the younger generation, younger than me at least, I would say that have a hard time. And it's not all personal. You know, everybody wants to make it. I don't take this personal. You know, if I don't win one, I get a show that I thought I should win, I definitely go back and take a look at things and maybe try to see it how they saw it. I might not agree with them, but I certainly, before I look, you know, I'm not saying I haven't lost my head. Believe me, I have. But I try not to, you know, I definitely try not to. And I definitely try to go back and review things, because even to this day, I still don't think that nobody can stop a good dog, you know, I mean, even River, I mean, in the beginning, he was such a bull going around the ring that, you know, he just didn't come right out of the chute and start winning, you know. It took me a lot to get him to calm down, but you believed in the dog, and you believed in the program that you're running, and the cream rises to the top. There's no one can stop a good animal. At least that's what I think. And maybe when I stop thinking of that, then I'll do something else. But till to this, you know, that's my mentality of going into everything, you know.
I love that. So looking back on all of this and where you're at now, I know you have people who work for you, and there's, you know, younger people in the sport that you encounter at these shows and these specialties. What, you know, if you had to summarize those conversations that you're having with them, what are kind of the main guidance points you give those people to set them up for a sustainable career in the sport?
Well, you know, I look at things, maybe I just see things different from everybody else. You know, I figure it all starts at home, you know, of taking care of the dogs. I mean, I put every penny I have, you know, into this place here of making it better for the dogs. My place is not designed for a dog to live its whole life here. It's to be safe here and properly keep them in condition, because, you know, the sad part about the job, there's good and bad about being a handler, is I get to work with the dogs in the height of their life. You know, I don't have to see them when they get older. I don't keep anyone older here. I don't have to see when they start declining. I get to enjoy the height of their life. So, I mean, I try to do the best program that we could possibly do for the breeds that I show. And it all starts at the house, the trimming and the grooming and the mental stability. And then when we feel that the dogs are ready, then you take them to the shows. I feel like a lot of people, they jump and they want to go straight from the shows, you know,
before they're ready,
you know, or they're running to the show to get the first spot. I'm barely getting there at the time because I have so much work to do in the evening, you know. So, I mean, the dogs are not, I think it all starts at home with the care and the conditioning and the mental stability at home. And then that will make you successful into the ring, you know.
I think that's great advice, because it is a living thing. It's not a tennis racket that you can just show up with, right? It has to be crafted and built up, and that takes patience.
On you can be having a good day. That's probably the best thing that I learned off of Jim, is reading the dogs. You know, I watched your interviews, I watched Will's interviews, and sometimes a lot of people get, you know, and I love all those, and I watch them probably when I shouldn't while I'm driving. I put that phone in, and instead of listening to music, I watch those interviews and learn from them. But I think that when you do this, you got to be more mental. I don't think a lot of people said about how important the mental stability of the animal is, because even if they're having an off day, you have to fix that. And I don't think a lot of people read that. You know, if I got to go in there and just hit a tennis racket all day, then we would be okay because I know how I feel that day. But I
Yeah.
mean, you got to be a little bit of an off dog whisperer a little bit, make sure their mind is straight, you know,
Yeah.
and especially when you show the German Shepherd dog, because the German Shepherd is always up front. You know, whether you're in, when you get past the breed level and you're in the group, they always go in first in the herding. They always go first in the best in show. Everybody's always pushing the German Shepherd. So, and let's face it, first impression in life is everything. So I always have to make sure that those dogs, and I learned that from Jim, are always on top of their game right out of the chute, because that the first dog
That's your snapshot.
is that dog. You know, people don't look at it that way. And again, I think that I learned to just look at things different than everybody else. So
yeah. Amazing. Well, Lenny, it was so great chatting with you. Thank you so much for sharing these stories. And I think you need to start working on that book.
Thank you. All right.
Have a great day. Thank you so much.